Snow fell softly over the village that Christmas Eve, covering rooftops, streets, and secrets alike. To the world beyond the mountains, it was a night of peace. Candles in windows, children asleep with dreams of gifts and laughter. But in this village, the snow did more than bring silence. It erased footsteps, it swallowed screams, and it hid the truth, because while the church bells rang for Christmas, something ancient moved between the houses. Tall, pale, watching, waiting. They would later say the children never cried. They would swear no doors were forced open. They would insist the snow showed no tracks the next morning. Yet when dawn came, some beds were empty, and in the places where children once slept, the cold lingered as if Dracula himself had paused there, breathing in the innocence of the night. This is a story of what truly happened on that Christmas Eve, the night Dracula came for the children and the snow hid everything. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss our dark, emotional, and cinematic stories about Dracula and the secrets hidden in the night. The snow began just before dusk, thick and slow, as if the sky itself were trying to hush the world. In the village of Valian in Sorii, Christmas Eve always arrived wrapped in white, but this snowfall felt different, heavier, intentional. Each flake landed without sound, piling onto rooftops, fences, and frozen fields like a blanket meant to hide something beneath it. Children pressed their faces to windows, counting the hours until morning. Candles glowed inside modest homes, and the smell of bread and pine drifted through narrow streets. Mothers hummed carols softly. Fathers checked doors and windows more than once, blaming the cold for their unease. No one noticed the silence at first. It crept in slowly, threading itself between familiar sounds. The wind faded. The dogs stopped barking. Even the church bell, rung for the early Christmas service, seemed muffled, as though the snow swallowed its voice before it could travel far. Old Elena, who had lived longer than anyone else in the village, stood at her doorway and stared at the falling white. Her hands trembled around her shawl. "Too quiet," she whispered to no one. "The night is listening." Inside the Ionescu house, 7-year-old Luca lay in bed, eyes wide open. He wasn't afraid, at least not yet. He was waiting. Like all children that night, he believed something magical might happen while he slept. A sound on the roof, a soft thump by the chimney. But what he heard instead was a whisper. Not outside, not inside, behind his thoughts. Luca frowned and pulled his blanket tighter. "Mama," he called. No answer. Down the road, in the Popescu home, twin sisters Mara and Alina slept in the same bed, hands clasped together. They dreamed the same dream. A dark figure standing at the edge of the forest, snow clinging to a long black coat. In the dream, the figure did not move. He only watched and smiled. At the edge of the village, beyond the last house, something stood where the trees began. Snow touched his shoulders and did not melt. His form was tall and still, carved from shadow and pale stone. Dracula had returned to a place that had once begged him never to come back. He did not rush. He never did. His red eyes traced the outlines of homes, lingering where small hearts beat beneath thin walls. He could hear them, each breath, each dream, each unguarded thought. Christmas made children careless. Hope loosened the mind. Belief opened doors no lock could seal. The snow continued to fall. Dracula stepped forward, and for the first time that night, something impossible happened. No footprint appeared behind him. In the village square, a lantern flickered out. The flame did not sputter. It simply vanished. A man passing by paused, confused, then continued on, unaware that the darkness had grown thicker behind him. Inside her bedroom, 9-year-old Anya sat up in bed, heart racing. She felt watched, not from the window, not from the door, from everywhere. She slid out of bed and crept to the glass. Outside, the street lay empty, smooth with snow. No tracks, no movement. And yet, a shape shifted near the far fence. Tall, still, Anya's breath caught in her throat. The shape raised its head. 2 red points glimmered briefly in the darkness, then vanished. Anya stumbled backward and hid under her blankets, whispering prayers she barely remembered. She did not scream. Something deep inside her knew screaming would be a mistake. Across the village, parents felt a sudden urge to check on their children. Doors opened softly. Blankets were adjusted. Foreheads were kissed. Everything seemed fine. Too fine. Dracula moved through the streets without touching them, passing walls as if they were fog. He paused at certain houses longer than others, listening, choosing. "You've been good," his voice whispered into sleeping minds. "You've been waiting." One by one, children stirred, not awake, not dreaming, but caught in between. Their faces relaxed. Their breathing slowed. Somewhere inside them, a door opened quietly. The snow fell thicker now, covering rooftops, paths, and memories. By the time midnight arrived, the village was wrapped in white and silence. Christmas Eve had come in full, and Dracula had only just begun. Far away, the church bell struck 12, but in Valian and Sorii, no one heard it. The snow made sure of that. Midnight passed without ceremony. In other places, church bells echoed across valleys, announcing Christmas with joy and familiarity. In Valian and Sorii, the bell rang once, and the sound died halfway through the air, as if the night itself had closed its hand around it. Inside the bell tower, Father Andre frowned. He pulled the rope again, harder this time. The bell moved. He felt the vibration through his palms. But outside, nothing answered. A chill crept into his spine that had nothing to do with winter. Father Andre had served this village for 30 years. He knew the sounds of it like prayers etched into bone. Silence like this was wrong. Not peaceful. Not holy. It was deliberate. He stepped down from the tower and looked toward the square. Snow fell thicker now, blurring the edges of buildings, softening corners, erasing paths. Lantern light struggled to exist beyond a few feet, as if darkness leaned inward, curious. At that same moment, Lucas sat up in his bed. His eyes were open, unblinking. His body moved without urgency, guided by something gentle and precise. He slid his feet onto the floor, feeling no cold. His bedroom door opened before he touched it. In the hallway, his mother slept standing against the wall, her breathing slow and deep. Luca looked at her and felt a strange sadness, not fear, not panic, but the distant ache of goodbye. "I'll be right back," he whispered, though he didn't know why. The front door opened silently. Outside, the snow welcomed him. Across the village, the same quiet miracle repeated itself. Children rose from their beds and passed through rooms where adults slept unnaturally still. Locks released. Hinges did not creak. Floors did not groan. The snow erased every trace. Mara and Alina stepped into the street hand in hand, barefoot and calm. Their eyes reflected the lantern glow like glass. "Do you hear him?" Alina asked softly. Mara nodded. "He's calling us by our real names." At the edge of the square, Dracula waited. He did not rush the children. He never pulled, never dragged. His power did not need force. He offered certainty, and the children followed it like gravity. His cloak did not move with the wind. The snow avoided him, parting just enough to keep his form clean and sharp. His face was pale, beautiful in an old and unsettling way, carved with centuries of patience. "You came," he said not aloud, but into the space between their thoughts. The children stopped several steps away. Anya trembled. Something inside her, small but stubborn, fought to hold her back. She remembered her mother's voice, the warmth of the kitchen, the promise of morning. Dracula turned his gaze to her. "Not all doors open easily," he murmured. His eyes softened, glowing faintly red. "And that is why I am careful with you." Father Andre stepped into the square just then, clutching his cross. He saw the children first, standing too still, too quiet. Then he saw the figure among them. His breath caught. He had seen paintings. Read forbidden texts. Dismiss them as symbols, metaphors. None of them had prepared him for this. "Children," he shouted, "come back to me." His voice shattered the stillness. For a moment, the children hesitated. Dracula turned slowly. The priest felt the gaze settle on him like a hand closing around his throat. "You are late," Dracula said calmly, "and this night is not yours." Father Andre raised a cross. In the name of... The words failed him. Not silenced, forgotten. Dracula did not move toward him. He did not need to. You teach them to fear me, Dracula continued. But fear is only the beginning. I offer something else. The children shifted. Some smiled faintly. Others stared, empty and distant. What do you offer? Father Andre forced out. Dracula's eyes flicked back to the children. Relief, he answered. From pain. From disappointment. From growing up into a world that devours them. Snow swirled suddenly, thickening into a white veil. The priest stumbled, blinded, disoriented. When the snow thinned again, the square was empty. No children, no Dracula, only smooth, untouched snow stretching in every direction. Father Andre fell to his knees, clutching the cross to his chest, breath tearing from his lungs. All over the village, parents woke at the same moment. They rushed to bedrooms. Beds were empty. Blankets were folded neatly, as if placed with care. No footprints marked the doorways. No signs of struggle remained. Only the silence and the falling snow, still hiding everything. Far beyond the village, beneath the cover of ancient trees, Dracula guided the children deeper into the forest. Christmas morning was approaching, and the village would wake to a miracle made of absence. The forest closed behind them without a sound. Snow clung to the branches like pale bones, bending them inward until the path ahead felt like a narrowing throat. The children walked in a single, quiet line, their breaths steady, their steps light. No one cried. No one spoke above a whisper. Whatever it called them here still wrapped their thoughts in calm. Dracula moved ahead of them, his presence bending the darkness into shape. The trees seemed to lean away as he passed, as if they remembered him. And they did. This forest had known his footsteps long before the village had been built, long before prayers were carved into wood, and bells dared to ring against the night. Lucas stumbled once, the spell flickering. Cold rushed up his legs. Fear followed. He looked down at his bare feet in the snow, and suddenly understood how far he was from home. His heart began to race. "Mama," he whispered. Dracula stopped. The forest froze with him. He turned slowly, regarding the boy with a look that was not angry, not cruel, only assessing. "You are waking," Dracula said quietly. Luca hugged his arms around himself. "I want to go back." Some of the children turned toward Luca, confusion rippling through their stillness. The pull inside them wavered. Dracula knelt, bringing his face level with the boys. "Going back," he said, "means remembering everything you are about to lose." His eyes glowed faintly. "Do you want that?" Images flooded Luca's mind. Arguments, loneliness, the ache of growing older, the moment when Christmas stopped feeling magical and became only a date on a calendar. The warmth of childhood dimmed, replaced by something heavier. Luca gasped. Dracula placed 2 fingers gently against the boy's forehead. "Sleep," he whispered. Luca's knees buckled. The calm returned, smoother than before. The forest released the breath it had been holding. They continued deeper. Behind them, Father Andre struggled through the snow, lantern shaking in his hand. He had followed instinct rather than tracks, guided by a pressure in his chest that burned like a warning. "God forgive me," he muttered. "God guide me." The forest resisted him. Branches snagged his coat. Snow slid into his boots. Sounds twisted, making him turn toward whispers that were not real. Then he saw it, a shape ahead. Tall, still. Dracula turned before the priest could call out. Their eyes met. The lantern shattered, plunging Father Andre into darkness. "You should not follow," Dracula said calmly. Father Andre raised his cross with trembling hands. "Those are children." Dracula tilted his head. "They always are." The priest swallowed hard. "What do you want from them?" Dracula looked back at the line of children. Mara and Alina stood side by side, their expression serene. Anya stared into the trees, listening to something only she could hear. "I want what the world takes from them anyway," Dracula said. "But I take it cleanly, quietly." "You're lying," the priest said, though doubt crept into his voice. "You feed on them." Dracula smiled faintly. "I feed on what remains when hope is stripped away. Snow fell harder now, spiraling between them like a curtain. "You cannot stop this," Dracula continued. "Not tonight." Father Andre stepped forward anyway. The forest screamed, not aloud, but through pressure, pain, and memory. The priest collapsed to his knees as centuries of darkness pressed against his thoughts. When he looked up, Dracula and the children were gone. Only the snow remained. Deeper in the forest, the children arrived at a clearing they did not recognize, yet somehow knew. An ancient stone circle lay buried beneath ice and moss, older than the village, older than names. Dracula stood at its center. "This is where listening becomes forever," he said. The children formed a ring around him. Anya felt it then, a crack in the calm. She remembered her mother's hands brushing her hair, remembered laughter, remembered warmth that had nothing to do with magic. "Will it hurt?" she asked. Dracula looked at her for a long moment. "Yes," he answered honestly. For a moment, snow began to fall upward, lifting from the ground in slow spirals. The air thickened, humming with something ancient and patient. Far away, the first hint of dawn brushed the sky. Dracula raised his hand, and the forest held its breath, because what would happen next could not be undone. And Christmas morning was closer than anyone knew. The air inside the clearing changed the moment Dracula raised his hand. It thickened, not with cold, but with memory. Snow no longer fell from the sky. It hovered, suspended, each flake glowing faintly as if lit from within. The ancient stones beneath the children's feet began to emerge, their surfaces carved with symbols worn smooth by centuries of forgotten rituals. The forest did not move. Even the wind seemed afraid to interrupt what was about to happen. Dracula stood perfectly still at the center. "This place remembers," he said softly. "It remembers every promise made in desperation, every bargain struck when fear outweighed faith." The children felt it then, not as terror, but as weight, a realization settling deep inside them that they were standing somewhere outside ordinary time. Mara squeezed Alina's hand. "What is it going to take?" Alina whispered. Mara did not answer. She already knew. Dracula turned slowly, his red eyes passing over each child. When his gaze met theirs, images surfaced, quiet moments stolen from the future. First heartbreaks, first disappointments, the slow erosion of wonder. "You believe I steal innocence," Dracula said. "But innocence is fragile. The world breaks it without asking." He stepped toward the twins. "I take something else." He placed a hand gently over their joined hands. The twins gasped. A warmth surged through them, followed by a sharp, fleeting pain, like the moment before tears fall. Then it passed. They did not scream. They did not collapse. They simply changed. Their expressions smoothed. Their eyes lost a certain light, replaced by calm clarity. Childhood slipped from them like a coat gently removed. Dracula moved on. Anya watched, heart pounding. Her inner resistance burned brighter now, no longer dulled by his voice. She remembered her father lifting her onto his shoulders, remembered the sound of laughter echoing through the house. "No," she whispered. Dracula stopped in front of her. "You are still listening to the wrong things," he said, almost regretfully. "I don't want your gift," Anya said, her voice shaking but firm. "I want my life." For the first time, something like surprise flickered across Dracula's face. He leaned closer. "What you want will hurt you," he said, again and again. "Maybe," Anya replied, "but it will be mine." The snow trembled. Dracula straightened slowly. "Very well," he said. "Then you will remember tonight." He stepped away from her. Anya collapsed to her knees, gasping, not from pain, but from relief. Tears streamed down her face, warm against the cold ground. Luca watched everything in silence. Something inside him burned hotter with every child Dracula touched. Fear had turned into anger, anger into resolve. "This isn't right," Luca said suddenly. Dracula turned sharply. "You speak again," he observed. "They trust you," Luca continued, "and you're taking something they don't understand." Dracula approached him, towering, his shadow stretching long across the stones. "I take with consent," he said. "They followed me. You made them, Luca shot back. You whispered until they couldn't hear anything else. The forest groaned. Dracula's eyes narrowed, not with rage, but with focus. There is defiance in you, he said quietly. That is dangerous. He reached toward Luca. Anya screamed. The sound cut through the clearing like a blade. At the edge of the forest, Father Andre felt it. A sudden rupture, like a crack splitting the night. He pushed forward through the trees, driven by desperation rather than hope. In the clearing, Dracula hesitated. Only for a heartbeat. It was enough. Luca stepped back. No, he said. You don't get to choose for us. The snow began to fall again, downward this time, fast and heavy. The hovering flakes dropped like a curtain being torn away. Dracula recoiled slightly, cloak snapping in an unseen wind. Dawn approaches, he said, irritation sharpening his voice. This night ends. He raised his hand once more, completing the ritual in haste. A pulse of dark energy rippled outward, passing to the children like a wave. Some cried out. Some went still. When the light faded, the stone circle was empty. The children lay scattered in the snow, alive, breathing, but changed. Dracula stepped back into the shadows, his form already thinning as the sky lightened beyond the trees. This is not finished, his voice echoed. It never is. Father Andre burst into the clearing moments later, falling to his knees at the sight before him. The children were there, all of them, but as he touched their faces, his hands trembled. Their eyes stared past him. The forest fell silent again, and somewhere deep within the snow, Christmas waited to arrive, bearing gifts no one had asked for and consequences no one yet understood. Christmas morning arrived without color. The sun rose slowly over Valian and Sorii, pale and distant, its light struggling to pierce the thick veil of clouds and falling snow. Church bells rang again at dawn. This time, their sound carried, but it felt wrong, hollow, like an echo from a place that no longer existed. Parents poured into the streets when word spread. They're back! The forest had returned the children just before sunrise, laying them at the edge of the village as gently as snow settling on a windowsill. No footprints marked the path behind them. No broken branches. No sign that anything had carried them there at all. They were simply present. Mothers screamed when they saw them. Fathers ran forward, dropping to their knees in the snow, pulling small bodies into their arms. Names were shouted, prayers cried out, sobs shaking the frozen air. But something was wrong. Luca's mother held him so tightly he could barely breathe, her tears soaking his hair. "You're home," she whispered over and over. "You're home." Luca did not answer. His eyes were open. He was awake. But his gaze passed through her, unfocused, as if fixed on something far away and unreachable. All through the village, the same horror unfolded. Children stood or sat silently, allowing themselves to be touched, hugged, shaken, but giving nothing back. They did not cry. They did not smile. They did not ask for gifts or food or warmth. It was as if something essential had been carefully removed. Father Andre walked among them, his face gray, his hands trembling as he traced the sign of the cross again and again. He stopped in front of Anya. She was different. Her eyes were filled with tears. Her body shook as sobs tore free, loud and raw. She clung to her mother as if afraid to let go, as if afraid the world might vanish again if she loosened her grip. "She remembers," Father Andre whispered. Anya looked up at him, eyes red, full of fear and fury. "He was real," she said, "and he's not finished." The word spread like frost through the crowd. Some parents refused to accept what they were seeing. They laughed nervously, insisting their children were simply tired, frightened, in shock. Others knew better. Old Elena knelt in the snow, staring at the children with hollow eyes. "He took their winter," she murmured. "He took what keeps them warm inside." Inside the houses, Christmas lay untouched. Tables were set. Gifts waited beneath trees. Bread cooled on kitchen counters. No one celebrated. Luca sat by the window of his home, staring out at the falling snow. His parents watched him closely, afraid to blink, afraid he might vanish again if they looked away. Inside him, something burned. Not emptiness. Resistance. He could still feel the place in the forest, the circle of stones, Dracula's eyes, the moment when something had tried and failed to claim him completely. He remembered the whisper, and more importantly, he remembered how to close his mind to it. That afternoon, Lucas slipped away from his parents' sight and walked through the village. He found Mara and Alina sitting side by side in the snow, hands folded in their laps, faces calm and distant. "Do you remember?" Luca asked. The twins turned their heads slowly, in perfect unison. "Alina remembers facts," Mara said flatly. "Mara remembers rules." Alina added, "But neither of us remembers how it felt." They said together. Luca swallowed hard. Anya joined them moments later, wrapped in her mother's coat, eyes fierce. "He didn't take me," she said. "Not completely." "Why?" Luca asked. Anya looked toward the forest. "Because I didn't listen." The sky darkened earlier than it should have that evening. Snow began to fall again, soft, steady, relentless. Father Andre gathered the villagers inside the church as night approached. "He will come back," the priest said quietly. "Not tonight, but one day." Fear rippled through the crowd. "What do we do?" someone cried. Father Andre looked at the children. "We remember," he said, "so they don't have to face him alone again." Outside, beyond the tree line, something watched the village. Dracula stood among the shadows, his form faint in the growing dusk. He did not look angry. He did not look defeated. He looked satisfied. "They will grow," he murmured to the night. "And growth brings cracks." His red eyes fixed on one house in particular, on one boy who still remembered how to resist. "Christmas," Dracula whispered, "is only the beginning." Snow fell thicker, covering the village once more. And beneath it all, something ancient waited patiently, for the children to grow old enough to hear him again. The final night of Christmas passed without celebration. No laughter echoed through Valian and Sorii. No songs drifted from open windows. Candles burned low behind drawn curtains as families sat close together, afraid of the dark not because of what it hid, but because of what it remembered. The children slept, or at least their bodies did. Luca lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling as snow tapped softly against the glass. He could feel it again, the faint pressure at the edge of his thoughts. Not a voice. Not yet. More like a presence testing a door it had once opened. He closed his eyes and pushed back. Not listening, he told himself. Not ever again. Across the village, Anya jolted awake with a gasp. Her heart raced, sweat cold against her skin. She had dreamed of the forest, of stone rising through snow, of red eyes watching from between trees. She had not heard his voice, but she knew he was near, at the church. Father Andre knelt alone before the altar. He had not slept since the children returned. Prayer came easily now, not from faith alone, but from fear sharpened into purpose. "They survived," he whispered. "That has to mean something." Outside, the snow began to change. It fell heavier, faster, driven by a wind that did not touch the trees. The night thickened, pressing inward like a held breath. At the edge of the forest, Dracula emerged once more. He did not enter the village. He did not need to. His gaze swept across the rooftops, lingering where hearts still burned with resistance, where memory had not been fully taken, where pain remained, but also warmth. "You cannot protect them forever," he said softly to the wind. "They will grow, and growth opens doors." The snow shifted beneath his feet, forming shapes that vanished as quickly as they appeared. Faces, hands, moments lost and reclaimed. Back in his home, Lucas sat up. He felt it clearly now. A test, not a call, an invitation. If he answered, even once, Dracula would know. Lucas slid out of bed and walked to the window. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass and looked toward the forest. For a heartbeat, he thought he saw a figure standing where the trees thickened. Tall, still, watching. Luca raised his hand, not in greeting, in refusal. "I remember," he said aloud. His voice shook, but it carried. "You didn't finish." The pressure vanished. In the church, Anya felt it too, the sudden release, like a weight lifting from her chest. She smiled weakly through tears. "He heard you," she whispered. Dawn came slowly, cautiously, as if unsure whether it was welcome. When the sun finally rose, it painted the snow in pale gold, revealing a village still standing, still breathing. Father Andre rang the bell again. This time, the sound carried far beyond the hills. Days passed, then weeks. The snow melted. Paths reappeared. Life, fragile but stubborn, pushed forward. Some children never laughed the same way again. Some stared into space too often. Some woke screaming from dreams they could not explain. But they lived, and they grew. Luca and Anya met often, sitting at the edge of the forest where the trees thinned. They did not cross the line. "We'll remember," Anya said one afternoon, "so others don't have to listen." Luca nodded. "And if he comes back?" "He won't find us asleep," she finished. Far away, in places untouched by snow or time, Dracula waited. He was patient. He always was. Because he knew what the children did not yet understand. Christmas was not the night he won. It was a night he learned who would one day be strong enough to stand against him. And the snow, no matter how thick, could never bury that truth. The end. Back Christmas tree.